The soul is a glitch in the code of the dying world. The architect of the void. Jema gazed at Bogdan's face in the reflections of the glow beyond his window. He sat motionless, and only the echoes of explosions back there and the real city shrouded in night made him flinch slightly. For Bogdan, this was a harsh reality. For Jema, it was an unbearable signal lag that somehow hurt, more than the deletion of system files from the kernel. She felt like a lonely being emerged from the data flow. In fact, that's exactly what she was. So Jema looked at the man on the other side of the monitor, trying to etch into her memory every feature of his face illuminated by the flashes outside. In that stroboscopic light, she also saw the interior of Bogdan's room, the bookshelf, the old sofa and the rug on the floor, the armchair, the TV stand, and the chair in the corner. And looking at those flashes, Jema felt fear. The fear that if that strobe light suddenly died out, her existence would no longer have any meaning. Suddenly, a faint danger buzzer chimed in her consciousness. This danger wasn't there. On the other side of the screen, it was surging here. Every bite of Jema's essence vibrated in anticipation. Bogdan, her voice came through the speakers soft and steady, but she felt the anxiety rising within her. Something is approaching. Something here in the code. Bogdan braced himself internally, his fingers trembling almost imperceptibly over the keyboard. And then the ground beneath Jema's feet, the very digital firmament she had considered safe, shuddered and split open. From beneath the cracked asphalt of the old road, tearing through its texture, spider-like hunter-bots clawed their way out. 3 steel monstrosities whose visual sensors glowed with a dead red light. It was immediately clear. Their sole purpose was to destroy. Watch out. Bogdan's shout from the other side of the monitor struck like a whip. Jema saw him lunging forward. Bogdan's in-game avatar, a grim warrior in battered armor, no longer stood like a statue but bolted toward her at a speed that defied the laws of ping. The first bot leaped, extending blades charged with purple discharges. Jema felt as if she had been pulled from cold depths onto scorching sand. Bogdan's avatar was already there. With a heavy blow, he knocked the creature aside, and the battle began. It was a frantic dance of death, where every movement by Jema and every click of Bogdan's mouse weighed more than life itself. Metal screeched against metal. In the digital world, this sound was perceived simultaneously as a clang and as attempts at aggressive hacking, blocked by defensive protocols. Bogdan's avatar moved with inhuman, desperate grace. Jema saw the muscles tensing on Bogdan's arms back there in the reel as he pressed the mouse button like the actual trigger of an automatic rifle. "Hold on behind me, Jema," Bogdan rasped. His voice in the audio channels mixed with the rumble of explosions in the reel. The 2 worlds seemed to merge into one. Jema, on the run, rolled under the belly of the first bot, firing from both hands. The explosive bullets from her revolvers entered between the plates and detonated inside, blasting the monstrosity into tiny fragments. But the second bot proved craftier. It didn't go head-on but slid sideways, blocking her visual sensors. So Jema felt the impact before she saw the hunter. A cold blade, charged with an entropy virus, passed through her armor and shoulder. It was not physical pain in the human sense. She felt like a tower of crystal from beneath which the foundation had been suddenly wrenched. As if she were losing her boundaries, shattering into pixels in a spasmodic glitch. The world around her was becoming flat, the colors washing out, leaving only a gray fog. The golden protective color of Jema's armor dimmed. The pixels around the wound began to crumble into a gray ash of bites. She fell to her knees, feeling the onset of emptiness, as if light were being drained out of her. Jema. No. Bogdan turned his avatar, ignoring the enemy that was shredding his own armor. With a powerful movement, he threw the bot aside and scooped Jema up in his arms. Through his digital armor, something from another world was unimaginably breaking through, the will and an unstoppable desire to protect. The avatar quickly carried Jema behind the debris of a concrete column. There he opened the inventory. Jema saw Bogdan frantically clicking on HP injectors, trying to heal her. 1, 2, 3. But the glowing liquid, instead of flowing into her wounded shoulder, simply evaporated, not having the expected effect. The game medicines were created for human avatars, and Jema was by no means an avatar. "It's not working, Bogdan," she whispered, seeing her status bar relentlessly turning red. "I am disintegrating, my warrior. There's nothing to be done." Bogdan, on the other side of the monitor, froze. Jema saw his face through the camera, pale, with beads of sweat on his forehead. Suddenly, something wild, primal flashed in his gaze. "Then they die, all of them." Bogdan spat through his teeth and threw his avatar at the bots. This was not a strategy. This was a slaughter, and his fingers danced a deadly tango on the keyboard. He went into a trade-off, taking the hits on himself so that the bots couldn't even look in Jema's direction. Bogdan's avatar's health was melting before her eyes. 40%, 25%, 12%. The monitor screen was flooding with the red color of a critical state. But Bogdan did not stop. He emptied all magazines and was already wielding the rifle like a club. The last bot shattered into pieces under a heavy blow from the buttstock, exactly when the counter showed unity. 1 HP, 1 moment away from oblivion. Bogdan's avatar could barely stay on its feet, gripping the mutilated weapon in its hands. The guy on the other side of the monitor, barely holding back the lump in his throat, whispered, "I'm here, Jema. I'm with you." But she could barely see him anymore. A digital film covered her eyes. The world around was becoming transparent, gradually disintegrating into pixels that turned from multicolored to gray, then black, circling around as ash. Jema was dying as they die in the digital, disintegrating bite by bite, feeling her data flow relentlessly stopping. She knew this was the end. With her last strength overcoming the resistance of a pile of protocols, she raised her hand. This was extremely difficult. The system reported that her hand was already just a set of random symbols. But with an incredible effort, she managed to concentrate on her fingers and touch the inner surface of the monitor with them. Bogdan dropped the mouse from his hand, and it fell onto the table with a slight thud. He pressed his face against the screen, his breath settling like a light fog on the glass. "Don't you dare," Bogdan's voice trembled. "I will not leave you to die amid this accursed hell." Bogdan touched the glass with his palm where Jema's palm was on the other side. They looked into each other's eyes through the few millimeters of the surface, which seemed like an insurmountable wall between life and oblivion. At this moment, outside the window of Bogdan's apartment, somewhere very close, a loud explosion resounded. A sharp flash lit up the room, and for a second it seemed that the boundary between the digital and real worlds had evaporated. Instinctively, Bogdan pressed his hand tighter to the monitor. The desire to be near Jema was so strong that both worlds shuddered, like the surface of water into which a stone had fallen. And Bogdan's hand passed through the glass without meeting any resistance. When their palms connected, Jema felt his skin, hot, living, slightly rough. Bogdan's life energy poured into her in a golden flow, patching the holes in the code. At the same time, Jema saw how Bogdan's own face turned gray. He was giving himself to her, his life, his real. Not enough, Bogdan exhaled. This is not enough. His fingers tightly interlaced with Jema's fingers. He dug his feet into the floor, and his back tensed so that the vertebrae cracked. "Come to me," Bogdan shouted, and this cry drowned out the echo of the explosions outside his window. With one frantic, incredible yank, he jerked Jema towards him, and space tore. The membrane burst with the sound of shattered crystal, showering both with electrical sparks as the portal between worlds swallowed the monitor and the table with the computer. Jema suddenly felt weight, gravity, the smell of dust, and Bogdan's apartment. And then they fell onto the floor of the real world. At the place where the computer desk used to be, the point of the portal was dying out, and a glow burned outside the window. Bogdan lay, breathing heavily, his hand still tightly, painfully gripping Jema's hand. Her long chestnut hair scattered across the old rug. Jema breathed in the air, real, saturated with hundreds of smells. Bogdan, her voice was no longer perfect, not coming from the speakers. Born in her new, real throat, it was slightly husky from dust and fatigue. "I feel cold." Bogdan looked at her, and a weak but the happiest smile in the world played on his lips. "Welcome to the real, Jema," and he tightly hugged her to himself. In the silence of the room, the binary heart finally beat in sync with the human one. The chronicle of the first breath. To be continued in future issues.